Becky Solon lived 3 hours south of here, just outside a small town. I think I sent my bios, you probably saw that. And we have 5 kids, and my husband's a school social worker, and I work part-time in town. So.
Very good.
Yeah. The one question I wanted to ask you, or one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, what can you as president do to support the private development of America's natural resources, energy resources? Because it is very painful to pay as much at the pump as we do, and what I've so often thought is it affects the price of Velveeta at the grocery store, to have gas be so blame high. So I'd be curious to hear what ideas you have.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things the president can do right off the bat. He can open up areas where the president has considered off limits. We had the deep water moratorium. There are areas that the president has prohibited drilling. That's one thing you can do. The bigger problem is areas like Anwar, areas that are federal lands that are open, that we need to open up, either to move them to state lands or to move them to private ownership. Mm-hmm. There are lots of minerals. There are lots of oil and gas opportunities on a lot of federal land that, frankly, is not environmentally sensitive. It's simply federal land, and the federal government does not allow the kind of access or development of those lands that the private sector does. And I think my intention is to look at those lands and to see where we can, like Anwar, open it up for leasing, or in some cases just move them either to state or to sell them even more profitably to private ownership for that to be developed. So that would be one. The second is, you have a regulatory environment that creates a lot of uncertainty, that creates a lot of cost, and that is obviously the EPA. We talked about that outside, and how we need to go through it and not just replace the head of the EPA, but replace the folks downstream, and work on looking at the rules and regulations that are in place that either have to be repealed completely or replaced with something that is more compliance-oriented, working with business to help them be able to meet standards, as opposed to being, the stone face. Business wants to work, and they say, nope, you just, you do it, and we'll fine you, and we'll hammer you, and we'll penalize you, instead of trying to see if it can work, see what they can do to hurt and punish. And that kind of uncertainty and hostility really has an impact on the amount of energy that's developed in this country. And I could also, the other thing, we could build a pipeline. Obviously, that's the big thing. Building the Keystone Pipeline would be huge for North Dakota, it'd be huge for Canada, and I could get your oil to market in a way that can make it a lot more profitable venture than it is now. Okay.
Hi, Senator. I'm Susan Noah.
Susan.
My husband's an engineer. I'm a stay-at-home mom. We have 6 boys.
Well, good for you.
And my biggest concern is the culture in our country, and trying to raise boys with, children in general, with integrity, hard work ethic, all the virtues that we want for our children. What can you do to change the culture as president?
Well, one of the things I often say is that culture is upstream from politics. So you see a reflection of the culture in politics. I'm not too sure politics has the ability to really shape the culture in a profound way. Certainly a president can have some impact, more than politicians in general, in that. Can you do so by your own personal example? In that respect, I can say the president has been a good husband and father by all accounts, and hopefully that role model is something that's a positive thing for our country. At the same time, it's what you say and what your policies are, and what you choose to talk about. We've had a long discussion in this country now about obesity, because that's what the First Lady likes to talk about. And not to say that's a bad thing. I think there's certainly a legitimate discussion that we need to have. It certainly is a problem in this country. I would argue that at least one of the root causes of obesity is the breakup of families and the destabilization of families in America. I think that's a stress. A lot of obesity is caused by stress on children, and when you have both financial stress or family stress or a whole host of other types of stresses that that even society puts on you, and you don't have a strong family unit, whether it's intact or not, to help deal with that. You increase the problems that children have in our society. So, talking about the importance of basic institutions of our country, talking about the values and virtues, and actually, to the extent you can, modeling them or promoting them in different ways. For example, my wife is, as a mother of a disabled child, children with a disability. That's something that she'll, as First Lady, would certainly talk about, and certainly we would talk about the value and the dignity of all human life, which is something that I think is eroded in this country. So there's all sorts of things that you can do in a soft way, not a hard way, that can make a difference in our country.
Hi, Senator. My name is Carrie Brock. I am a mother of 4. Social
You're
studies.
out of order. It's 5, 6, 4. How did you do that?
7.
I was expecting 7.
Watch out over there.
Yeah. You're either 8 or 9, or 3 and 4. So that's how I thought it worked around.
Well, I have 16 to 2, so there's always room for more. And I guess and I'm a social studies teacher. I teach middle school social studies to some of these ladies' children. And my question, I guess, is kind of related to that. I teach in a Catholic school. It's really a blessing to be able to help to instill values that the church is teaching. But you don't have to step too far outside of the school to be bombarded with other images. And I brought you a little printout from, a Facebook page that's this whole issue with, what Catholics believe about birth control. And, those are the kinds of things that our kids are being bombarded with, all these mistruths, and the church this and the church that. And I guess I'm wondering, are you prepared for what the response will be to you as a conservative Catholic?
Oh, yeah. This is not my first rodeo. I mean, I've been out in the public eye before, and I've been attacked on these issues many, many times. I mean, this is just 98% of Catholics, practice birth control. Well, 100% of Catholics lie. That doesn't mean that we believe in lying. Just because people don't practice what we preach, well. I wish I practiced everything I preached. I mean, I don't. I mean, we all fail. We all fall short. And there's a difference between falling short and speaking the truth as you know it. And that's what our obligation is. Is to not to be intimidated by dumbing down what is true to the standards that we all fail to meet. Okay, we all do meet. Now, the ones we fail to meet are the right standards. The ones we do meet are lower standards, and just because we don't live up to those things doesn't mean that we should just live down to where the culture is. We should always aspire to do better. And I've gone out and talk about things that I know are controversial, and this whole dust up on contraception is exposed. Well, you don't believe in contraception. No, Karen, I don't. We don't practice contraception. We never have. We don't believe in it. And so I'm over here with these 2%. As far as I'm concerned, that's what my faith teaches. I understand. I've read Theology of the Body. I've read, the church's teaching on this, and it makes perfectly good sense to me. Now, obviously, 98% of Catholics probably have been exposed to that, and it probably doesn't make a lot of sense to them. that's a failing of the church in its formation. It's not a failing of the church in its policies. So this is more of, I see this as more of a reason that Rick Santorum gets attacked for this is because the church hasn't done its job in informing the people in the pews as to why they believe what they believe. And and to some degree, do I suffer the consequence of it? We all suffer the consequence when the church doesn't live up. The church in writ large, not the Catholic Church, but the church writ large doesn't preach the gospel and teach the truth. We all suffer.
Nice to meet you, Senator. My name is Roxanne Sullivan. I am a mother of 5. I'm not going to put a bigger number. And I just wanted to thank you for meeting with us, for one thing, and giving us a chance to have this intimate conversation with you. I'm a writer. I stayed home, did some part-time things for 16 years. I started as a newspaper reporter. Now, as of actually just last month, I'm back in the newsroom, and we're writing for a section that's a news section called She Says. So all of our stories connect to women one way or the other. So I guess my first question would be related to that in terms of more of a general question of what do you think are the most important issues for women right now at this time in your career, and maybe possibly different from what they were 4 years ago or 8 years ago?
Wow. It's really interesting. I mean, I guess I tend not to look at issues that way. I tend not to. You heard me out there talk about how the president divides people up into groups and pits one group against another. And so if you ask me that question, what's the most important issue for blacks, or what's the most important issue for Hispanics, or what's the most important issue for labor, or what, I tend not to look at issues that way. I tend to say, what's the most important issues for America? And because half of America are women. Women are certainly not any kind of monolith, either in their beliefs or their actions or a whole host of other things, political or otherwise. And so, I tend to try to say, well, this is what I believe are the most important issues for America. And I sort of see women as part of that discussion. And that, as far as unique challenges that women face, I guess I see less and less unique challenges. I mean, I see, for example, more women in college than men. I see women in the workplace and doing well with respect to what they hope to accomplish in the workplace. Obviously, you see women having different needs and desires. Some group does. Some group are, committed to, full time in the workplace. Others are committed to more of a part-time role, moving in and out of the workforce. Obviously, different than men in that regard. But at least in my perception of it, it seems. Well, I shouldn't say my perception. I can look at it from how I deal with it as someone who was employer for a long time. I mean, I was always someone that tried to facilitate and tried to make clear that we wanted and accepted that discrepancy or disparity between how women in the workplace functioned versus men, and actually liked. We had people that job shared for a while in our offices who were going through their childbearing years and didn't want to work full time, and so we had 2 people, and so they shared the job. And we had people that worked part time from home. So I always felt that was, maybe that I looked at how I dealt with that, and I guess maybe I make the assumption that that's something that is more universal than maybe it is. But I would say that may be a unique challenge with women that in dealing with interacting with the workplace. But it's something that at least I found in my time in the Senate that was we kept some tremendous valuable resources by having the flexibility to be able to accommodate different people at very different stages of their lives. So I guess I would say I would identify that as something that maybe the world doesn't recognize how, or the business community doesn't recognize how valued that resource is.
Mr. Santorum, my name is Cheryl, and I'm a single mom, and you met Benjamin. And that is pretty much my life. I'm kind of a coward compared to these ladies. I've had one. But it was like having 10. But I'd just like to ask more about the entitlement programs, because I really am sick of entitlement programs. And what would you do to make those end or drop them on the states? And how exactly would you do all that? And would it go through as quickly as Obamacare did?
No. I mean, unless we have, a 60-seat majority in the United States Senate, then we can make a lot of things happen
God willing.
quickly. And the idea for what we're doing with what I want to do with all these other entitlement programs, save Social Security and Medicare, is to treat them the same way we did welfare. Welfare was a block-granted program. It was cut, capped, frozen for 5 years, and we gave flexibility to states to redesign their program under certain guidelines. There were more than two. I always talk about two. There were probably a few more, maintenance and effort, things like that. But by and large, the two sort of heavy-duty things that we required the states to do was to put time limits and work requirements. And we can take, I think we should take the Medicaid system. That to me is the most important thing to block grant. Second would be food stamps. All the rest are relatively small programs compared to those two. But if we could take the Medicaid program, that would be the highest priority. Get that back to the states. Let them operate it. Get the federal government out of it. Then move the federal government out of the Medicare business and make that a private sector run program. And then we would have the federal government completely out of the healthcare. I mean, people don't realize how much the federal government controls healthcare, even private sector healthcare. Every code that you bill your doctor is billed under a Medicare code. All the reimbursements are generally pegged off of what Medicare pays and what's going to be approved. All those things. I mean, the government has a huge role in the marketplace. We just got to get it out. Otherwise, we're simply not going to get any kind of efficiency in the healthcare system. And to the extent that we can give it to the states, at least it allows for discrepancy and disparity, which may lead to a lot more competition and efficiency in the system.
Really, really like that bringing it to the states idea, because really then it depends on your demographics statewide.
Right.
You aren't, it isn't the same thing if you live in Illinois as if you live in North Dakota.
It's very different.
I mean, I think that's a great idea. Not that I didn't think of it, of course I didn't, but I've never heard that idea before.
Yeah, it's the way to go. And there was a time when people didn't trust the states to do certain things. Obviously, we had issues in certain states in this country for a long time. I don't think people feel that way anymore. I don't think people see the state government as a scary place to give authority to anymore. I think we're sort of out of the dark ages of state governments, and I think there's a lot more confidence in the American people to give them the authority to do things better than the federal government.
Anybody want a picture with the senator? We'll wrap it up. We're at 22 minutes. This was fabulous.
Okay.
He needs to get to bed and get some rest because he got a lot of work to do to defeat President Barack Obama.
Prepare for a speech tomorrow at the Detroit Economic Club.
Yeah, exactly right. Come on, guys, take pictures up here quick if we could, just everybody together.